For Session Update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. The differences between Democrats and Republicans and rural versus urban interests came to the forefront as the Senate opened its 2016 session. What began as a routine motion to create a new budget division on environment and energy highlighted the differences between legislators.
Thank you, Madam President. I thought you'd seen me earlier. I wasn't sure, so appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I'll just be brief. But Madam President, members, this is a big deal we're talking about right now. This is about Minnesota, and we all come up here at first day and so on. I think we're generally pretty unified, but our job is to unify this state. And I look at what's happening here, and by the way, in terms of where we are in this particular amendment, I say vote red, because it's just terribly important that as we go forth this day, our first day here, that we do it in a spirit that unifies Minnesota and doesn't rip Minnesota apart. And I will tell you, the legislature is all about balance. Our judgments, generally speaking, hopefully are all about balance. But when we see committee structures like this, going to a very heavily leaning metro persuasion, if you will, in an environment committee that is almost daily dealing with issues affecting rural Minnesota, that is not going to set well. I will tell you, from the standpoint of the political split in Minnesota, yes, we may have Republicans, Democrats, but we're creating here today, if we do this, we're creating this metro-urban split that, metro-rural split that's very serious. Our folks back home are not going to like this at all, and so, Madam President, members, think long and hard about this. We want to keep Minnesota unified and working together in a balanced sort of fashion. We're going right off the charts, in my opinion, at least in terms of imbalance, and that is not going to set well, certainly back home where I come from, or anywhere else in greater Minnesota. This is a real imposition on greater Minnesota that I think we need to all think about long and hard, take very seriously when we press that red or green button. Thank you.
But members, think about it really doesn't matter who's on what committees, because ultimately decisions get made on the floor of the Senate. And in the case of divisions can't send a bill to the floor of the Senate. They have to send their bill to the Finance Committee, and then the Finance Committee ultimately makes a decision what comes to the floor. But at the end of the day, it's the floor of the Senate that decides what ultimately passes the full Senate. I think people are making way much to do about nothing with this.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to remind the body that Senator Bach just said it doesn't matter who's on what committee. Oh, it matters. That's why we're talking about this today. It matters a great deal. And the fact that this was done, now acknowledged by Senator Bach behind closed doors by people he doesn't want to talk about, and it wasn't done in daylight, means that everybody in this body knows it's a bad idea. The people who come here to have their bills heard are very used to the way things have operated for the last 3 years. You are making a substantial change to the operations of the Senate. You did it behind closed doors. You don't want to tell us who made the decision. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. This is not the way we're supposed to operate. We are supposed to be transparent to the public. We are supposed to give voice to people who don't have a voice. We are not supposed to meet behind closed doors and create committees willy-nilly and then come to the Senate floor and expect people to just vote. That's why this argument is happening. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I am sorry if Senator Tomassoni has trouble when policy and budget are in the same bill. We can help him with that. Happy to take the workload. But just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Thank you, Madam President. And obviously, this is a very passionate issue for all of us, because there is an issue of transparency here on all fronts. And obviously, if you are from greater Minnesota, you should be terribly concerned about this. And Senator Marty, with all due respect, I've served with you for a very long time. I think you've been chair of education, chair of health policy, and now you're going to be chair of a very important committee that affects us out in greater Minnesota, from north to the south. It is in charge of the energy policy bills. It has financial oversight over the governor's 50-foot buffer law through the Board of Water and Soil Resources. It has control over policy initiatives with the PCA on enforcement of wild rice standards, wastewater discharge permits, compliance with the Clean Power Plan, regulating feedlots, enforcement of water quality standards. Those are real significant issues facing Greater Minnesota. And if this is not just an amazing act that we are going through today, take a look at what's on the agenda for the first thing in Thursdays in Senator Marty's committee, folks. It's a reversal on something that we passed and the governor signed last year, the Citizens Board. So this is very, very serious. Anybody serving Greater Minnesota, anybody that cares about what's going on here, please vote on our side. Vote no, thank you.